I've got Ishveen Anand on the show who connects athletes. She has a whole business connecting athletes with brands in terms of sponsorships, influencers, all that kind of stuff. It's called Open Sports.
Open sponsorship.
Open sponsorship. Uh, this sounds like a great idea. So basically, it's almost like an exchange. So athletes sign up on one side, brands are on the other side, and a brand might, let's say they make some kind of T-shirts, and we want like a great athlete to be the face of our company. And there's some evidence that it's great to have celebrities be sponsors. Like Vitamin Water had 50 Cent,
Yep.
and obviously Nike has or had Michael Jordan. Adidas has Kanye West. So this is, I guess the basic question I have is, do celebrity sponsorships work? Like if you pay a celebrity, and I know you deal specifically with athletes, so we'll talk about your business in a second. I'm interested in the entire model. If you connect a brand with an influencer, is there value?
Yes. Obviously, I'm biased, but yeah, there is. So a few different levels of explanation as to why there is value, right? So one would be external validation. It's always easier, I as a CEO, it's always easier if someone else says that I'm doing a good job versus me trumping my own horn or whatever you call it. So I think that the main thing is that you've got external validation. Now you could say, well, that guy's paid to do it. The good thing about using a celebrity is there are very few deals in the world where the celebrity is paid enough to say something that they just fundamentally don't believe in. I think especially in today's time where thanks to social media and just the instant feedback loop, it's very dangerous for any person, celebrity or non-celebrity, to try and go out there and kind of say that they're part of a message or a movement that's not true. And so I think you are paying someone, but ideally you pick them because they fit your vibe. And therefore that external validation plus having someone who is authentically involved in your brand is the perfect combination.
Also, I guess, like, cynically, we can say, Michael Jordan went with Nike or whoever he went with because he got paid, $100 million. But I think the average core audience, like let's say the person buying the kid buying the Air Jordans, doesn't think in terms of like, well, how much was he paid? How much stock did he get? They just want to get those sneakers. So I think probably in the average case, the consumer doesn't care that much.
Yeah, and interestingly, so we just, one of our clients is Anheuser-Busch, and so we just did a deal for them with Chad Johnson,
Who's that?
retired NFL player, pretty famous, and he doesn't drink. He did the deal, he doesn't drink, so pretty inauthentic, not the best deal in the world. However, the engagement was actually amazing on the post because a lot of his followers are saying, hey man, but you don't even really drink, like, why did you do this deal, blah, blah, blah. And so I think even being the other side and being controversial with it or having a story around kind of, this was a new brand of Anheuser-Busch's, they just launched, they just wanted the visibility. The same way that when you buy media, you put your banner on ESPN, you're essentially using ESPN's influence and audience to go out there. Does that mean that you necessarily agree with ESPN's views or that you think of yourself as an ESPN audience as a brand?
But in this case, though, if he doesn't drink, he does disagree. He doesn't drink for a reason. So somehow the company is going against these reasons. How did he engage with his fans on this topic when they asked him?
Yeah. So most celebrities, regardless, don't really comment back on messages or on comments that they get. It's kind of commonly known that Chad Johnson's slightly needing of money. And so I think a lot of his fans know that he does. I mean, this guy, like, he's brand ambassadors for like a ton of different brands, but his big thing is that he'll put up entertaining content. He's a little bit tongue in cheek. So I think it kind of fits with his vibe that, oh yeah, he's just kind of doing this for the dollars. But the point being is, as a brand, I know what I'm getting into and it's kind of okay.
I see. So okay. On one side, there's the athletes, and why just athletes? Why not all? Why not like YouTube influencers, Instagram influencers, every influencer? Because you have the infrastructure, presumably. I always view every business has three items. You have people who have an abundance of something, people who want that abundance, and the platform in the middle that mediates between that. So Airbnb, people have an abundance of rooms or houses, other people want access to those rooms, and then Airbnb is the platform in the middle. You're the same thing.
Yeah.
Some people have an abundance of influence. Then there's brands who want to be attached to that influence, and you're the platform in the middle. But you could extend that to more than just sports athletes. You could extend it to, you could be a platform for all influence.
Yeah, absolutely. So I used to be a sports agent. So to be honest, the business idea came along because I just thought there should be a better way to do the industry that I loved, which was sponsorship. We do have a lot of pressure externally, internally to add music pretty soon. I was actually, obviously we're based in a comedy club here. Someone came up to me and said, "Why can't you do this for stand-up comedians?" And
Yeah.
there's so many different verticals to go. Sponsorship is a $60 billion industry. 70% is sports. So it makes sense that, we're a small startup. We have 12 people. So it makes sense for us to attack sports first, get it right, and then spread.
And how many athletes are on the platform?
5,500.
So all of these people decided, hey, this might be the best way to get noticed by brands, as opposed to my agent taking care of everything.
Not completely. So of our 5,500 athletes, 65% are signed up by agents. So we'll work with all the big and small agencies. So actually, it's more a case of most agents are really they'll have one marquee athlete, whether it's LeBron James, Peyton Manning, whoever, and then they have a roster of other athletes who they're not as great at selling, that your typical 80-20 rule. And so we're really good at selling the non-top 3% of athletes. Like our deal sizes are $5,000 to $25,000.
So it's like someone who's like a running back for the New York Giants might not be a household name, but he's still a professional football player.
100%.
No one's banging down on his door to give him a $20 million sneaker deal, but there are brands that are the right size and fit for him. They just don't know he exists, and he doesn't know they exist. And this is a way to meet them. Like, what are
Yeah.
some of the brands? How many brands do you have using you?
About 250.
And what are like some of those brands?
Kind of you hit the nail on the head before when you talked about t-shirts. So a lot of apparel, supplements. I mean, we tend to go for CPG companies where there's a natural fit between the athlete and the product. So we do really well with mattresses because a lot of these athletes change city every year. They don't want to have to pay for a new mattress. It's a very hot topic right now. So a lot of home goods, tech, electronic tech, you can imagine we do really well with, so product. And then on the other side, we do really well with apps and things where they're looking for download. They're very focused on the male demographic. So with the athlete following and the gaming or whoever they're looking for, there's a nice overlap.
So like, let's take apps for as an example. So some startup company app wants more downloads, sees your platform and says, oh, I can get this XYZ player. He's not the best in the world, but that means he's affordable. What happens then?
Yeah, perfect question. So essentially, the brand will put up a campaign. Think of it like a job posting or an RFP on our platform. So it'll say, looking for athletes who love gaming. We're offering $500, $5,000, $50,000 in exchange for 2 social media posts, an appearance, a photo shoot, whatever it is, terms and conditions, so rights to name and image use, blah, blah, blah. That lives on our platform. And then all of our agents and athletes will apply and say, pick me because of XYZ reason. Here's my price point. So super streamlined.
And when they make these social media posts, do they have to disclose, oh, such and such brand is paying me?
They should, yes.
But they don't always.
It's up to, as long as one of the parties wants, legally, yes. But there's obviously a lot of we're doing deals where 20% of our deals are just product gifting. So if I'm only going to gift you a mattress and you're going to put up a post, I think there's a few gray lines as to, well, does it need to have the hashtag ad? So usually, yes, and all of our biggest brands, for sure. I think the smaller guys tend to see what they can get away with.
Uh-huh. And what's like the typical deal? Like, let's say I'm a running back for the New York Giants and I sign up for your platform. What do you think I can, and I'm personable, blah, 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 whatever. I have all the qualities that people want, but I'm just not an all-pro running back. I'm not going to be a Hall of Fame running back, so I'm not going to be at the highest level. What can I expect? What's the typical deal look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So fortunately, unfortunately, it's very pegged to your social following. A couple of reasons why. One is that social obviously dictates a lot. It's the number of eyeballs you're going to reach. But the second is also social is almost, to me as a brand, a guide of how sociable you are and how influential you are.
I see. So that's like really the metric. I can't just say, hey, you'll like me in a party.
Yeah.
That's really the metric of how you decide how likable I am.
Mostly, I mean, obviously, like, so Peyton Manning, for example, doesn't have a social media channel at all. No one's paying him $0 because of that, right? Like, he still commands a certain level.
But the unknown though, like so
Yeah.
Peyton Manning's known, he's going to get in the Hall of Fame. So the unknown guy who's in
Yeah.
the middle there, where he deserves some recognition, but he's not going to get $50 million deals.
I think you're looking at, if you're an active player who is on the starting lineup, you're looking at maybe around 2,500, 3,000 for a social media post. To turn up to an actual event, probably about $5,000, $6,000.
What about let's say I'm an app company. I developed an app and I want to give an athlete, I want to pay less, but I want to give them 2% equity in the company.
Yeah.
Like, do you work out those deals?
Yeah, so on the platform, we've got like different forms of remuneration. So you've got cash, product, royalties, and equity. Essentially, it's really up to the agent and athlete to decide which they apply for. So we have done equity deals. Definitely tough. I think the biggest thing with what we do is, and the biggest advice to anyone looking to do celebrity stuff, is just managing expectations. So if you think that giving someone 2% of your company means that they're going to work for you for the rest of their life, like, unfortunately, I think a lot of times deals are very sexy at the beginning, and like anything, whatever it may be, any long-term relationship, like, there's a drop off of excitement and dedication, I suppose. And so I think the biggest thing is that equity doesn't mean that this guy's going to post for you infinitely. And I think it's still important to chalk out, okay, what am I expecting in return?
So what's your business model? Like, you get a cut in the middle?
We charge our brands a membership and take a cut. Yeah.
I see. So not the athletes. You don't charge them anything.
No.
You charge the brands to have access to the platform.
Yes.
Do they see the platform beforehand, or they kind of blind? Like, you just tell them we have 5,500 athletes, and
No, we do like a whole sales process, a whole demo, show them the ins and outs of the platform.
and what do they pay?
$400 a month, starting from $400 a month.
And have you seen success rate yet? Like, do brands get an athlete to be an influencer for their stuff, and then their sales spike as a result? Or what's your best success story?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say that, I mean, we have many successes, and success is judged in different ways. Obviously, the holy grail is sales, but there are a lot of brands out there that are looking for testimonials, validation, content that they can repurpose. Our preferred thing is get great content from athletes. So let's talk about running back from Giants. Let's say we're working with a flower company. We show him giving flowers to his wife. Beautiful post that they can use. The second part that we do, which I think is where the performance comes in, is we'll actually get the athlete to whitelist themselves, and we'll boost the post through their social media channels. And that's where you see the ROI in sales.
What do you mean whitelist themselves?
So essentially, they'll sign up and give us access to run ads through their Facebook account, their Facebook, Instagram account.
Okay, so you make you help them make a post, and then and then the brand is able to do an ad spend?
Yeah.
Do you do the ad spend for them? Like, they give you the money, you mark it up, and then you do the ad spend?
Yes.
Okay, so that's another line of revenues for you.
Yeah, and we added it because from the pure organic post, like there are very few people that can actually drive ROI. Like, even, let's say a Rihanna, it costs $150,000 to get her to do one post. Is she generating $150,000 worth of sales in that moment? Probably not, which is why I think the ad spend is really important, that repurposing of content, as we call it.
But the brands themselves don't know how to do the ad spend. They rely on, like, you're a little ad agency too within this.
Yeah, so they'll take that content and do it themselves. So that's super easy for them to do. The difficulty is if you want to push it out through the athletes channel, A, it's a bit finicky, and B, once you do that, you do get access to a lot of the data on the athlete. So because we're a marketplace and we're delivering these athletes like sometimes hundreds of deals, they'll obviously allow us to do this stuff where they wouldn't give it to each individual brand.
I see. So any one of your 5,500 athletes, they could be doing 10, 20 deals at a time. Like,
100%.
what's an example? You don't have to say any names. What's an example of, like, a mid-tier athlete who is just killing it on your platform? Like, he's doing like 100 deals a month.
Yeah. So we actually have a lacrosse player called Bill O'Brien. So he plays in the Major League Lacrosse. not as famous as a Paul Rabel by any means, but he always has a photographer, a videographer with him, and he just makes amazing, amazing content. And so probably has around 60,000 followers on Instagram. So nothing crazy, but it's just for a brand, what they love is like A, super genuine, B, great content. If they were to make that content themselves, it would cost them a few $1,000s. And so he's the kind of guy who's probably doing about 2 deals a week through
Wow.
us.
So like what brands are hiring him, or what
Oh,
kinds of brands?
tons. So I think the standout brand for me is Vitamin Shop. So obviously, again, one of our clients, and they will just keep reusing him. So they'll do one deal and then they'll give him another product line or another brand or whatever else. So they keep repurposing him. He has long hair, so he's done a lot with hair brands. I mean, if you think about it, what do athletes do? They do everything a normal person does. They have to eat healthy, they have to sleep healthy, they have to like bathe, groom, whatever else. I mean, it's so funny when we talk to certain brands, like a beauty brand, and they're like, "Well, why would we use an athlete?" And it's like, "Well, don't female athletes wear makeup every morning, kind of thing?" And so I think a lot of what we're doing is try and get out of just the endemic sports. Like he doesn't need a sneaker brand. He needs, he has a girlfriend. He's going to propose to her. Let's get him an engagement ring kind of sponsor, that kind of stuff.
So when did you start the business?
About 4 years ago.
You were in your sports agency and you were like, oh, I can't stand going into work here. I'm going to start my own thing. And there's this huge need for a platform that does essentially the agent's role.
Kind of. I moved over here 7 years ago, and I just thought one day I was working on a couple of deals which involved me jumping on a flight going from. I actually used to do a bit more team stuff, like kind of major minor league team stuff. And so one day I just thought, why is there not an Airbnb for our industry? And so that's obviously love Airbnb as a company, and so that's really where it started.
And then did you quit right away, or how'd you build the platform?
Yeah, so started with the athlete side. I think found myself a technical guy to start building it, and then probably it took me about 6 months before I was like, "This is it." And sometimes people say like, "How do you decide when you should do something full time or forever or whatever else?" And I'm like, it's when you wake up every morning and you're worried that any email that comes through is a friend telling you that someone else is doing the business that you want to do. So I think it got to that point where I was just like so obsessed with the idea that I was like, this is it. Like I have to do this.
And you're saying 70%. The reason you focus on athletes is you were an agent in this space. Who were you an agent for?
So there were smaller agencies, but I did a lot of work in cricket and soccer predominantly.
And you're saying 70% of kind of this influencer advertising is sports related. Do you find that changing? Like, is it becoming more YouTubers or musicians, or is that number changing at all?
Yeah.
Because I would say a YouTuber is probably huge. If like, I'm gonna just make up a name. I don't know anything about YouTubers, but like if Logan Paul recommended something on a YouTube video, that could generate
Yeah.
$150,000 in sales in a second.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. So influencer marketing as an industry has grown from basically 10 years ago was $0. And now I think it's about like 5 billion in size. And so that influencer marketing industry is made up of exactly what you're saying. All the YouTubers, like the TikTok, the Snapchat influencers. Obviously, we're called open sponsorship, and I'd still say that there's a little bit of a traditionalist in me that thinks of us as sponsorship as opposed to influencer marketing purely. And I'd say, so when we look at sports sponsorship, we're still thinking about the traditional channels of music, entertainment, sports, that kind of thing. There is such a blurred line between the two, which is why we transcend them both. But I think I have not looked. I'm sure if you looked at the influencer marketing industry and said, well, what sports? It's very, very low. I'm sure beauty and fashion would be probably like 70%.
For sports.
Of the influencer marketing industry, I imagine 70% would be like fashion and beauty bloggers, like your Kim Kardashians of the world.
I see. So, but what industries are best for sports, for athletes?
I don't think there's a best. I honestly do think anything that is natural to an athlete would make sense. I just think sometimes people have a roadblock of using athletes. Like I'll hear a lot like, well, athletes get in trouble and, blah, 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 like the legalities around it. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions. Like people think that the leagues have a lot of more say on what the athletes can and can't do, which is just incorrect. And so I think there's just a lot of like biases like that. That's why it hasn't spread down to the smaller brands, which is where we're focused as well.
And I kind of like when you were building your platform, what were the main issues? So you wanted brands to be able to make offers through the platform or just express interest in an athlete through the platform, and then you kind of handle it from there?
Well, that's a good question. So I was a sports agent, and prior to that, I was a management consultant. I was always obsessed with this idea that like we're not an agency. I didn't want to become a sports agency. And maybe also when we went to raise our first bit of money, a lot of people would tell us, "Oh, you're just like a sports agency with a website." And I was like, "Absolutely not. Like we're a platform." And so we actually built out a lot of functionality very early on, even when we didn't truly have the scale. And so we manage absolutely everything about the deal through the platform. So like we manage payments through the platform. Like if you send out a product to an athlete, we put tracking numbers into the platform. And so there was a lot that we did through the platform early on to prove that this was like a scalable solution, which is, I think now we've done about 4,000 deals, by far the largest. If you put us in the world, like we'd be a largest sports agency if we were one, but we're a tech platform. And so I think that's probably the biggest differentiator for us was the fact that we wanted to manage everything through tech.
So like, let's say a company and I see an athlete I like. Why can't I just call up his agent rather than going through the platform and letting you take a cut?
Yeah,
Because I'm gonna have to give the agent a cut anyway.
good question. A few things that, a couple of the reasons why we started, right? One is the process to deal with agents it's really tough because there's so many different things that happen, right? Like I will call you up, I'll get an offer from you or a price from you. At the point that you give me a price, then I'm going to discuss it with my team. I'm the brand. Then I come back to you and say, yeah, it's on. That's when you go to the athlete. The athlete will usually say, well, I want a bit more. Then you'll come back to me saying, I want more. I'll have to go back internally. And I was once with this guy who was like the CFO of like a Series E backed startup. And he said the hardest negotiation he's ever had was with a sports agent. And because he was like, people just don't stick to rules. And it's not always the agent. It could be the athlete. It could be just people in the middle showing value. And so I'd say the fact that, think about it, like you put up a campaign. Let's say I'm trying to be the next Gatorade. I'm looking for athletes who want to try the next energy drink. I get 50 applications in. Now, what happens is if I send you a proposal or I'm interested in you, drop you a message that I'm interested. If for some reason you back out, it's okay because I've got 49 other options. So I haven't wasted hours and hours. And so I'd say that kind of time efficiency is what we sell to brands as opposed to just the connection.
And but do you ever see cases where they kind of take it off platform? Like, are you able to? It's not
Yeah.
that you're able to track that, but do you ever find out about it or?
Yeah. So our brands will,
It's like, for instance, Airbnb has that problem.
some of our agents are not the wisest. I mean, we do take 20% from the deal, so I understand, but it's also they get 80%, so it's crazy. But they'll sometimes email our brands, and then what will happen is because the good thing is our brands are paying us a membership, so they're already like, well, we're already paying open sponsorship for all of this functionality. So then often our brands will respond to them CCing us, and that just obviously embarrasses them a lot into kind of using us. But it definitely happens. I think it happens to every single marketplace. And the idea being is that you have to have a carrot approach to why people should use you as a stick. So for us, we integrate with Google Analytics. We try and integrate with your Shopify. So we're trying to do a lot of value add. The boosting is a great example. So we're trying to offer things that you wouldn't necessarily do by yourself, which means it's worth transacting through us.
Like what?
Like the boosting, I
Like
would say.
boosting a post?
Yeah, exactly.
But then the brand still has to give you the money to do the boost. Oh, but I see. But the athlete is not trusting the brand with their social media accounts. They are trusting you.
They are trusting us. One, on our platform, at the end of the deal, you leave reviews and ratings. So big thing that happens in the industry is like athletes / influencers are very late to deliver. It's very exciting to get the product, and then they're never dressed, their hair's never looking right, so they actually never do end up doing the post. And on our platform, if you are not doing it on time, then you're blocked from applying to any other campaign. So there's a lot of like accountability that we have through the deal, which a lot of brands realize is necessary because otherwise, where is the money? Where's the deal? How are they following up? It's basically just not worth anyone's time.
And have you raised money for the business?
Yeah, so we raised $1.5 million. Mostly profitable. We made over $250,000 profit last year. So thinking about our next phrase, but it's not like we're not going to die without it.
And it seems like this platform could be applied to so many other industries. For instance, you could have podcasts on one side,
Yeah.
sponsorships on the other. There's 2 million podcasts out there, and
Yeah.
boom, everyone would sign up.
Yeah, it's you know, what's that phrase? They always say that you never die as a startup. You never die of starvation. And so I think ideas are there, but as simple as that, what happens to your website? What happens to my sales process? What happens to my account management? Now, even something as simple as like the whitelisting, we all had to be educated internally. What does it mean? We had to hire a freelancer, and so it's really a case of just like focus and then launching at the right moment, which is why I think raising money does help, because it gives you the bandwidth to bring more people in as experts.
And let's say someone came to you right now and said, "Oh, this is great. We'll buy the company." Would you sell it?
I'd say ideally not, but obviously the price makes a difference. But we have a long, long way to go. There's a lot more we want to achieve. And I think we're just at the crux of like figuring things out. So it's actually a really exciting time.
Well, I really love the whole model. So, and I am already thinking of companies I'm going to throw your way to find some athletes. Ishveen, Anand, thanks for coming on the podcast, and I hope you extend the platform eventually to include podcasters and comedians and all sorts of other categories. So I think that could be fun.
Well, thank you for all your intelligent questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.